Greetings and welcome back to Switched to Linux, and I am wearing my web developer's shirt again because we are back to WordPress tutorials. And what we're going to do here is WordPress Basics Part 1. We're going to be walking through the simple dashboard. So I'm going to show you what the default dashboard looks like. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The one area we're not going to cover on this one is the Customize menu. I'll point out where it is, but WordPress Basics 2, we're going to walk through that in a little bit more detail, especially since that's where most themes nowadays will put a lot of custom features in there. That's where you change your logos, banners in many cases, all sorts of other things. So we're just going to walk through very, very basics on each one of the sections in there inside of your system. So here we are on the example.com site that we installed last time, and if you do not remember how to get into your administrative panel on WordPress, the basic default is always going to be a /wp-admin, and you'll see that will redirect you to this wp-login.php, and there's a whole redirect there. wp-admin will always get you over to this one here. And then what we need to do is enter in your credentials. So right behind me. Now we're going to enter in our credentials. So remember that you do not want to use admin as a basic administrator username. That is the default, but a lot of people try and brute force the admin. So you want to come up with something else. So I did example admin. Still not very good. Of course, you want a good password. I do not have a good password here. I'm just showing you how this stuff works. And my system is completely secure because this is not online or anything. So there we have logged in. When you first log in, you will go to your main dashboard. Now, a few places that you will see things is in the upper right, you will see a help menu come down, which gives you links to documentation, support forums, etc. The other thing that you will see is screen options. So your screen options, if you're following some tutorial or whatever else and you don't see an option that somebody says should be there, pull down that screen options. Many places have a few of these items disabled by default, and I'm going to show you some options that generally will have that. Now, your dashboard will give you quick information. You can quickly start doing a draft over here. If there's anything going on, you can view it over here. You can make these guys smaller. You can move them out of the way. I don't believe any of these you can necessarily get rid of. I wish you could. Now, some of your plugins will add items to this dashboard. For example, the Google Analytics plugins, some of the more official ones will add an analytics plugin to your dashboard, so you can see how your analytics are doing without having to, without actually having to go to your analytics page. Or to the plugin settings, for that matter. So you can go ahead and see anything on the dashboard. Now, a lot of times, if you update WordPress or if you install certain plugins, you will get a dismissible action thing over here. In this case here, this is a basic welcome page where you can keep this guy open, and it will show up until you hit the dismiss button over here. But this is how you can write blog posts, how you can add a page, view your site, etc. I'm going to go ahead and dismiss that. Okay, now I always, whenever I'm in the dashboard here, the first thing I always do is I come up here where it says example WordPress. This is actually the name of the site that you have listed. And I come down here and I right-click this and I hit open a new tab. This way I can quickly jump back and forth between the public-facing WordPress site and the behind-the-scenes WordPress site. So that way I can quickly jump back and forth without having to jump screens all over the place. All right. Now you'll notice that when you are logged in, the default will have this administrative board up here. The new will take you to new post, new media, a new page, or a new user. Over here is your account settings where you can edit your account. You can edit your profile over here. This is your displayed username. Our customize option will take you to the, this should take you to the customize page. This is what we're going to be, this is the page we're going to be talking about next time on the WordPress Basics 2. And then over here, you can go back to the dashboard, themes, widgets, and menus. Okay. So on your main dashboard, you will have this menu on the left. Now, these are the default items. Depending on the plugins or the theme that you have installed, you will sometimes frequently have more items added to this list. So the post is where you would write a blog post. So this is where you go to, if you had a site that you have pages which are separate from posts. The post is this constant blog roll that you're updating with new articles. This gets all categorized onto a blog page that we will talk about at another time. I have a cat that wants to come up. All right. So, fortunately, this cat in my black shirt is a bad combo. This thing sheds a lot. Okay. So the posts are where you would add your various blog posts, and you will see under your posts you have all posts, which will give you a listing of every post on the site, which right now is 0 because we deleted the blanks. There is add new, which will give you the place where you can add new posts. The categories will allow you to organize your posts into individual categories, and tags are also a sort of like a category, only they do behave a little bit different, because you can tag things without it being part of a category, and you can categorize things without being part of a tag. You'd use the tags if you want to. They'll help out with keyword searches and things like that. Your media is where you add new media files. This can take pretty much any type of media files. So if you have PDFs you want to post, or images, or whatever else, you want to come into your media. Your library just shows you all of the media you have available, and the add new will show you the screen where you can add images, files, whatever else. Okay, your pages over here, this is where you can adjust your pages. Now, the difference, like a post is where you're constantly adding new content. A page is the basic layout of your site itself. And so you'd have an About Us page and a Contact Us page, but your blog page ends up being a feed of all of your most recent blog posts. So that page will update automatically. Of course, many themes will automatically have the latest blog posts on the front page. All right. Your comments is where you can manage the various people who have interacted on your site. Usually I generally will lock out comments, just because WordPress comment pages are very easy to spam. You will have more spam comments than you will ever have real comments. If you are turning on comments, then we'll talk about in later videos, we'll talk about various plugins that you can use to make sure that you're not getting a lot of that stuff. All right, so your appearance menu. This is where you can control a lot of the look of your site. So your themes is where you can adjust your themes. You can add and remove themes from this panel here. The customize is what we're going to be talking about next time. Now, widgets, these are the basic default is going to have the default theme that we're using here has a simple single widget sidebar, which ends up being like the sidebar on a blog page. And that's over here on the left on this particular theme that we have. So you can see here, this is the title of the site. This is the search bar, recent comments, archives, categories, and metadata. Over here, search, recent posts, recent comments, archives, categories, and metadata. Now, I always kick metadata off, and here's why. Down here is your metadata. This has your site login. You're just asking somebody to attempt to hack your site. It's like, hey, here's a quick site login. Your logout, your RSS, comments, none of these add any value to your site, and the first thing you should always do is just kick your metadata off. You can drag it off just by dragging it out, or if you expand this arrow, you can hit delete. Either one of those works. So these are your default widgets, and I think what we'll do is a whole video specifically on widgets, what they do, etc. Your menus, this is what will control your menus. Now, many of your themes will have a default menu. The default will simply list all of your pages that are on your site. And that's probably what this theme is doing. So we can test that by dropping a few pages in here and seeing if that's what happens. But what you need to do is, if you want to, instead of doing that, you want to customize what your menu looks like. You want to come over here, create a menu, give it a name, add content. again, we will talk about that in another video. Probably each one of these sections in here could be its own video. Might be a 5-minute video, but that'd be okay. Okay. Now header, you'll see that the header will go into the customize. This is something that is built into the theme. Background will usually also go into customize. That goes into theme. So again, these are all things that we will talk about another time. Now your editor, you have to be extremely careful in the editor. This will actually allow you to make adjustments to the theme files in your site. This is very dangerous, and the reason it is very dangerous is because if you break something in here, your site could very possibly simply die. So generally, stay out of the editor unless you really know what you're doing. For those that do know what you're doing, I'd always start by taking a copy of it, Control A, Control C on a Linux or a Windows computer, Command A, Command C on a Mac, and that will take a copy of it. And then what I would do is I would drop that into a separate text document just to have a backup copy of anything I'm changing. Now, most of your servers will enable you to make changes to this. The way I have my server configured, which is more for security, I cannot make adjustments on this page. Some of your servers, like if you're installing your system on a VPS, you will probably run into the same challenge. And this is actually good. I really wish that this was the default because it's really easy to come in here, think you know what you're doing, and if you do not know how a WordPress theme file works, you can really break a lot on your site without realizing it. So be careful about being in the editor. Most of your basic shared control panels, you will be able to make edits to this. Many of your VPS or custom-built servers will not unless you make the adjustments. And all I would have to do is actually just go into my server on my FTP server, or actually I'd probably have to do it through terminal and just change the permissions for the folders. All right. So the next menu is the plugins menu. This will show you a list of all the plugins. Again, when we first installed this, we removed all of the plugins. Hello Dolly should always just be deleted. It's too big of a hack target. It's expected in every default WordPress install, so get rid of it. People like to hide malware in that file. And that file, you can tell it's on there because it's on the server and the plugins directory, and it's called hello.php. All right. So, any plugins that you have will be listed here. And again, we'll look at plugins another time. We'll talk about 2 ways to install plugins. The Add New will actually go online, and you can actually search for plugins by name. So ASCII.Met is the one that we removed. A lot of your auto installers will install this super cache by default. I hate that. If you want to use a caching plugin, you put it up after the site is launched, or after your main QA testing, because you'll forget the caching is on there. The caching will interfere with future edits, especially those small tweaks that come on the latter end of doing a website development. Those final things, super cache will totally get in the way of viewing those. It will add too much frustration. You should not add that unless you absolutely need to. Then, of course, you can search for other keywords. You can look at popular, recommended, etc. Your users. This is where you can add various users to the site. The default role is generally a simple subscriber, which can log into the site and probably, I think, just view their comments. I don't use that role much. But then there's subscribers, there's editors, there are administrators. So to add a new user, you just want to click on the Add New up here. You need to give it a username and an email. First name, last name, website is not required. If you are building like more of a socially type site or a site where multiple different authors are contributing to your blog, you probably want to fill all those in because it'll make sure that everybody has their own author page, complete with their own personal websites and more information. And we can talk more about that at another time. The password, to set a password on a new account, you want to click the Show Password button. By default, it will give you some extremely strong random thing, and then it will actually email out the password to the user. But if you want more control over that, or you want to set it to be something specific, just click the show password and then just enter your password. Now, if you use a weak password, you have to confirm this box here by confirming the use of a weak password. If you do something totally crazy, then you'll see that that box disappears because it says that's very secure. Okay, here's the roles: the subscriber, contributor, author, editor, and administrator. So your subscriber can basically just see a backend panel that has their user, and I think their comments are on there. And some plugins will have the capability of doing subscriber-only paid content, so you can a subscriber can pay for the content. As long as they're logged in as their basic subscriber role, they can access the content of the page. If they don't, they'll be greeted with a welcome screen instead. A contributor is somebody who can edit some posts and as a draft mode, but nothing else. An author has a little bit more control over contributing where posts are, cannot finally publish posts, but can get everything in there. An editor, I believe, can publish posts on some elements. We can refer to the actual WordPress documentation page for more detail about what these specific roles do. And then the administrator, of course, can do everything. Now, your profile page, we're going to leave the page. Anytime that you make some adjustment to a page without saving or adding the final confirmation, you will get this pop-up. In this case, I'm going to leave the page. We're going to go to your profile. So your profile page, the visual editor is just the back-ended what you see, what you get editor that is an option on your edit posts page. So you can actually disable that if you want. You can set your color themes. So if you just want to make adjustments, you'll see what that does there, and just making some adjustments to your colorations. And I'm big into coffee, so I'm just going to go ahead and use coffee. All right. So there's keyboard shortcuts. Here's more information there. The toolbar. So the toolbar is this toolbar at the top of the site. If you uncheck this box here, then when you go back to the main site, then this toolbar will not be there. You'll view it pretty much exactly like a non-logged in user would view it. So you can do that. You'll notice that you cannot change your username, but what you can do is you can change your nickname and your display as name. So if somebody had assigned your username to you and you really want it to be something else, you can change this to some admin as your nickname. If I type in my name here, you'll see that my display public name, I have my basic username, I have some admin as my nickname, or I have my basic first name. Now, if you go in and you decide you want to change this, you can just go ahead and change this, and it will auto-populate this across all of your other blog posts that are already published on the site. So that's an easy way to do it. Of course, if you can change your email right here, just emailing something, adding your website. Here you can add a brief bio about yourself, and then you can add some pictures. Now, if your email is linked in, I think this is a default now. I haven't used Gravatar in a long time, but if you use an email that is linked to a Gravatar account, then it will automatically pull in your Gravatar email. And then, of course, you can generate a new password, or you can edit your new password here, and then update your profile. Right here, you'll see that this box here, it says log out everywhere else. If you are logged in at multiple different locations, so I've logged into my WordPress control panel here, at another computer, maybe at a friend's house, you'll see this option here. What you can do is click on this button, and that will clear all of the cookies everywhere except this particular instance you're on. So that's a nice safety feature, especially if you think your account was hacked or something. Then you want to come in here, change your password, and click this button, and then that will make sure that you're only logged in right here. Okay, so your tools, again, we're going to leave the page. Your tools, these are a few different tool options. Usually you won't use the tool options unless you're doing something specific. Like if you already have a blog at Blogger, you can install a tool that will grab all your posts from Blogger and import them into WordPress. Several of your purchased themes that you buy from online stores like Envato or something will have an import tool that you download to install the demo content. That's what this guy does here. So you can see we have an import. So this is if you're grabbing from Blogger. Here's a blog roll, all these other options here. This one here, post, brings in. So if you're on a WordPress.com site and you want to import your WordPress.com site into your own self-hosted, you can install this guy, follow the instructions, and it will import your posts. There's some exports as well. You can export all your various content, which is handy if you just want to do. This is not the best way to do a backup, but it will help you save all of your posts or content or something if you need to do that. And then finally, we have our settings panel. So our settings panel will give you some various settings. So under your site title, this is what you want your site title to be. That is what will appear up here in the tab. You'll see up here it says example WordPress, and you'll see it says -just, and then it fades off. That just is this tagline. This tagline, just another WordPress site, is the default tagline. You want to come in here and either add a tagline or delete it. One of the two. Otherwise, it will show up on meta results. It'll say underneath it, just another WordPress site, and it kind of looks unprofessional. So make sure you get in there and delete that tagline or adjust it to something. How about teaching WordPress to the masses? There you go. We'll do that. The WordPress URL, this is generally exactly what you have. Now, the reason this is in here, if I wanted to force this to be on www, I could do that. Or if you are adding an SSL, you'd want to come in here and put the S in front of this for SSL. And you want to, though, be careful, because if you add the wrong thing here, you could actually get locked out of your site. Because the way WordPress works is it always goes into the database and looks for things. Now, you can override that by adjusting your WP config file to override this setting, which is usually if somebody accidentally does something like this and locks themselves out of the site. That's my first line of defense. I want to go in there, edit the theme file, edit not the theme file, but edit the core file for the WP config, force it to be a specific URL, and that's how I can get back into the site. But if you are doing something like adding an SSL, just come in here, put the S in front of this. That's the first thing you would need to do to make sure the site goes to an SSL. If you want to force it to be on www, just do this, and then it's going to force the site every time somebody goes to example.com. It will force it to go to www.example.com. Many servers these days, that really doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but there are a lot of instances. If you're using old servers or your own VPS or something, you don't have things configured quite right, then you will run into errors. www.example.com is different than example.com. And if you don't have your server configured right, then somebody could go to example.com, but if only configured for www, they will not get it. That's something, if you are having that problem, you need to contact your hosting company to get that resolved. This is the administrator email that is going to email you every time something changes on the site. I should probably change this to something else. Why don't I go ahead and do sales@westernmtnweb.com, which already gets more spam than I know what to do with, but that's where I send general WordPress stuff. Okay, so the anyone can register will allow anybody that can get to the login page to register will be able to register. You will notice that the default keeps that turned off. That is important to keep turned off, because otherwise you are going to get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of spam users. They're going to log in and do a bunch of fun stuff and screw up your site. So you want to keep that disabled unless you have some really interesting paywall or reason to not do that. You'll see that the basic new user default role is set to subscriber. That is probably where you want, in case somebody does get in there and register, you definitely do not want them on anything that can edit your site. Here you can set your site language and your time zone. Right now it looks like I'm not quite right. I don't remember exactly what my time zone is, but let's see. What is it for? Let's see. Well, whatever. And then you can set your default date format. This is how basic dates will output. unless you specify otherwise, time formats, and then the day to start your week on. We're going to go ahead and save changes there because I did make some changes. And you'll see here that up here in the title, we switch back to the site. It says example WordPress site, just another WordPress site. We're going to go ahead and update the page because we updated the tagline. Now it says teaching WordPress to the masses. So you see that that's what we did there. Okay, under your writing tab, this one here will tell you where your defaults are. So if you want to set a default category, you need to come up to posts, categories, create a new category, and then change it from here. Since I have no default categories, you'll see that this is the only option under that. And then your post format. These various post formats, various different themes will have a different layout for types of posts that you can set. We're just going to choose a standard in this case. And then here is for your mail server. In this case, usually you will just leave this exactly as it is. If you're doing something custom with mail servers, then you know what to do with that box. Otherwise, leave it alone. So the reading, this will show your default posts page. On your default blogs page, how many posts are going to show. On your RSS feed, every WordPress site has an RSS feed unless you intentionally disable it. So you'll see that that will turn off. And then the default article is either going to show the full text or it's going to show the article summaries. And then you can disable search engines from indexing the site. This will add a robots.txt file that tells search engines not to index the site. Most search engines will respect that. Some of them will not. Let's see. Under your discussion, this is where comments are set. So you can attempt to notify of any blogs. You can read what all these guys do and check the documentation for specific items. All right. But then some of the options, let's see. A comment author must fill out a name and email. I like checking this box here. Users must be registered and logged into comment. If you do not do this, then even if you have disabled the comment forms on WordPress are done by adding a PHP variable. And if you do not check this box, then even though we have essentially turned off comments on the rest of the site or in other places, people can still post comments. But if they try and add that PHP variable and this box is checked, the site says, oh, you're not logged in. You can't leave a comment. So failing to check this box, if you're not utilizing comments for something specific, failure to check this box means that even though you have no forms anywhere on your site to post comments, a spammer will still be able to post a lot of spam comments to your site. So you want to check this box. I also, if on a site that I am allowing comments, I generally will close comments after, like, this says 2 weeks. I might say 30 days. Because after 30 days, most sites, most blog posts have faded out and other people are posting on newer content. This will prevent spammers, another spammer tool to prevent spammers from finding your post, especially if it's a lot more archived on search results and just spamming the post. So that's another safety feature you want to do. How far can you enable comments? So here, comments should be displayed older first or newer first. That's your preference. Email you when somebody leaves a comment, when a comment is held for notification. And then, of course, you can select this box here to manually approve all comments. So either one of those are good. Comment moderation. So here you can say what links, what types of links. In this case, if it contains more than 2 hyperlinks, by default, it's going to hold that in the moderation queue. And then you can put in words here. So come over here and enter your 7 words you can never say on television, and people will not be able to write any of those words in there. So this is kind of your fun place. I don't want to see all these words on the site. So you have to enter all those words right here. Here's your basic avatars. So you can show avatars on the comments. And then you'll see here that these are kind of your blank ones. I'm forgetting if the newer versions of WordPress, like I said, I haven't used Gravatar in a good 5-7 years. I think all of the Gravatar functionality is already built into WordPress now. You used to achieve that with plugins. I'm thinking if you select this option here, it's automatically going to grab from Gravatar. I'm not completely sure. That's something I should look up. We're going to go ahead and save that because I did make changes. So your media page here, these are your default thumbnails. So your default thumbnail size is 150 by 150. If you want to do something customized, just go ahead and change these values over here. And then you want to think about this before you really start building your site, because this does not retroactively go back and adjust media files already in your site. So if you've already uploaded 50 different files and you decide you want to change the thumbnail size, your only good option, well, there's a couple options. One option is delete all the files and re-upload them. Of course, that's a pain. There are some plugins that will attempt to rebuild your thumb caches for you. You can use some of those plugins. But think about that in advance. Have your design figured out. Know what thumbnail size that you want, and you can adjust those here. Here's your medium size, and here's your large size. And the reason you have the thumbnail, medium, and large size is when you add a media file to a post, then what it is going to do is it's going to ask you, do you want this to be a medium, a large, or an actual size? These are, though, where it's going to pull from. And it will not stretch your image. It will pick whichever of these dimensions and kind of stick to it. So if your image is 450 pixels, by 300 pixels, it's going to max width that out to 300 pixels, and then the height will be whatever the default is for that maximum width. And then organize your uploads into month and year based folders. That's pretty good for figuring out how to or where things are at. All right. So the last item here in the default is your permalinks. So your permalinks will set up how your site works. Now you have to enable HT access on your site to make sure this happens. Most of your servers will have this. I do not recall if mine does, so we're going to do a test. So what this tells you here is, do you want it plain? This is the worst. You should not use this plain option. This P equals, question P equals 1, 2, 3, horrible for SEO. You're not going to have any good SEO. Your date and month are really good if you have a news type site where you want people to be able to tell when the thing was published. The best for basic SEO is post name. Give it a good name, and this will make sure that your URL matches your post name, which always adds intrinsic SEO value. So the post name is generally the best. So what we're going to do here is to test if my HT access is working is I'm going to go under page, and I'm going to add a new page. I'm going to call this a new test page. This is new test page content, and I'm going to push to publish. Now, when you publish a new page, of course, we'll talk more about this in another video, but up here, you'll see you have the option to view page. If you click this, you will leave your dashboard. So I like, again, right-clicking and coming up here. So notice that here's my test page. This is a new page, and this is what the URL looks like. This is not good for SEO. So what I want to do is I'm going to come down into my permalinks, and I'm going to change this to post name. You'll see that it does under custom structure. That's what it does there. I'm going to save that, and we're going to see what it does. Okay, so it tells me here that your HT access file is not writable. And I kind of expected that. This is either I have not enabled HT access on my server, or it's a file directory issue. And so I'm going to go ahead and test that now. Basically what it does is it tells me here what my content happens to be. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to load up my FTP server and see what we get from there. Okay, so here's my FTP server. I'm going to go to example.com, and what I need to be able to do here is add an HT access file. All right, so we're gonna, let's see, let me move my server out of the way. I'm gonna right click. I'm going to new document, calls .ht access. Now Linux will allow you to name that as, well, it should be able to name you that as HT access. I'm gonna save that. Close, refresh the page. Since it is a hidden system file, it was not let me drop that on the desktop there. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this HT access file directly in my root, and you'll see that it successfully updated the file. And so now I'm going to come back over here, and refresh the page. Let's see, it does say page not found. That is actually somewhat expected, just because if I'm right on that page, if it's forcing that page, then it will go. Okay, so that's telling me right there, that's telling me that I either do not have HD access or I do not have mod rewrite enabled on the server. So this is the result that you will get if you do not have mod and rewrite enabled on your server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fix that off camera for next time, and so the next time we come logged in here, then we'll be able to see that. So that is your main control panel. Again, the next tutorial we are going to walk through this whole customized panel is what we're going to do in the next one. There's a lot of stuff in here. So with that, thanks for watching. So this has been Switched to Linux and Western Mountain Web Design. If you do need help with a WordPress install, let us know at westernmtnweb.com. There'll be a link to that below in the description, and I can give you some quotes about it. Of course, that is a business, so I can't give you a lot of free advice on that other than what's in the videos, but I do offer some very reasonable rates to help you with your WordPress needs. So with that, thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux and using WordPress.